Good day, everyone out there, and welcome to the TIHA Archival Conversations. The conversations that we do every Friday, bringing you activists and other individuals from across Africa that are trans and intersex, telling the story of trans and intersex Africa. Ours at TIHA, which is the Trans and Intersex History Africa website, is to document and to archive our stories as transgender and intersex Africans. Here we hear stories from activists and other individuals who may not necessarily be activists telling our history. As you know, there is a lot of strength in history. My name is Victor Mukasa, and I am your host on these archival conversations. Today, we have a very special guest, a guest from Uganda, a very, very important contributor to the history of trans and intersex Africans. Williams Apako is our guest. He is a prominent Ugandan LGBTI advocate and transgender man. He's dedicated to advancing the rights and well-being of marginalized communities. He's the founder and executive director of Tranz Network Uganda, TNU, an organization established in 2014 to support and coordinate efforts among transgender and gender diverse individuals in the country of Uganda. In February 2024, he was elected to the Uganda Country Coordinating Mechanism of the Global Fund, very important thing there, serving as the representative for key populations. And Williams will be telling us about this very important work that is beyond even just defending the rights of transgender people. But beyond his work at TNU and the UCCM, Apako actively participates in various committees and boards. He contributes to the National Security Working Group of Uganda, LGBT Security Response Committee, and the Technical Working Group of the Uganda AIDS Commission. Very important work he does there. Additionally, he serves on the Key and Priority Populations Program Sub-Community Advisory Board of Baylor Uganda, Center of Excellence, and Amplify Change Grantee Reference Group. There is a lot more. His education is amazing. Apako studies social work and social sciences. He has a diploma in project management, planning and management, and is pursuing, I don't know, maybe he has already achieved it, a bachelor's degree in diplomacy and international relations. And I think that's a big deal. But as most of our guests on this show, he is also a Young African Leadership Initiative alumni, YALI. Welcome to the show, Apako. Your work is big. Your contributions to this movement are huge and many. I cannot finish them in this 1 minute that I was given. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you so much for hosting me.
And if there's anything that I have not done justice to in your introduction, please go ahead and mention it to us. But we welcome you and thank you for accepting to be hosted today on the Archival Conversations.
Thank you, Victor. I'm more than happy to be. Yeah.
Thank you so much, and greetings to everybody at the Trans Network Uganda. We are happy to hear from them today. Apako, you've done amazing work. I have seen a number of interviews about you online, which is something that we should bring to our viewers today. On this show, we will be looking at your journey, personal and also professional, because your story must be a story of so many others, or a story that many will want to hear. Viewers, when I was in Uganda, when we were starting the trans movement there, very young and energetic, Apako was such a little boy. Today, Apako is one of our leaders, my leader, and that is why today I call him my big brother. Apako, where does your journey start from?
Thank you, Victor, and I'll say thanks to the Tranz and Intersex History Africa for hosting me. It comes at such a moment that we need to start documenting stories and of course, our experience and journeys as trans and intersex, and of course also gender diverse persons.
Right.
My journey, you can recall it, and I know you're going to be one of the people who relate with it very well. It started in 2013, when close to 2014, when the Kadaga, the Speaker of Parliament then had promised us a Christmas present.
Right.
And that's when the community became really confused for the first time to be.
Apako, what was the Christmas present that she promised you?
The Kill the Gay Bill. Yeah, she promised us to bring us anti-homosexuality bill, which was tabled the Kill the Gay Bill. And in that time, of course, the community became very confused. You as our leaders, Victor, and then Pepe, and also Kasha, and so many other activists became very confused, very disoriented, very disorganized, because you had pushed the movement at least to some stages, but then from nowhere the government says, you know what, we need to push you away from this place. You don't belong. We don't want you. We have to bring a law that, of course, curtails you, but also limits your freedom of expression, limits your freedom of association. And of course, with that, it really had a very big ripple effect on the community. We saw so many vibrant activists, passionate activists like you leave the country. We saw a surge of so many activists, like, of course, the late, I'm forgetting his name, David Kato. From that time, the community felt like this is not a safe space for us and we have to leave. And with that, some of us were young activists. We did not know where to start from. We did not have visas. We did not have access to passports. Even we did not know how do we navigate this space. But gladly, Victor, I would say that I was lucky that I was in Kenya at Uhai doing my internship. And of course, I'd been given that slot in 2013 towards 2014. So when that bill came, I was lucky that I was moving to Kenya. So much as everybody was very confused and disoriented, I was in Nairobi for an internship, trying to study the environment. And I was telling these people, you know, now my community is disoriented. The leaders have left. Some of them are thinking of running away. Some are thinking of seeking asylum in the neighborhood in Kenya. And of course, we saw a surge of so many young activists in Kenya for the trans women, trans men stuck in Kenya. And with that, I worked with Jinsi Yangu, which is based in Kenya, a trans-led organization. And I asked them, what do we do for Uganda at this stage? They kept me in Kenya for some time, and capacity training me to come back and steer the leadership of the trans and gender diverse movement in Uganda. Of course, from 2014 to date, I have been an activist who has been working tirelessly, wearing your shield where you left from, to of course educate and empower the community on the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation, but also to just try to make them understand that there's some of us who identify as trans, some of us actually even intersex, and some of us do not even know who we are. We're just in between. So my journey has been from that 2013, 2014 when the bill started up to date. And from then I founded Trans Network Uganda, which started with Uganda Network for Trans and Gender Diverse Persons. We felt the name was too long. We tried to, kind of cut it down to Trans Network Uganda, which then we managed to register.
For archival purposes, what was the first name again for your organization?
The Uganda Network for Trans and Gender Diverse Persons.
Right, thank you.
Yes, and then we had to cut it short to register Trans Network Uganda. Of course, we tried to register trans with an S, and the government refused it. We couldn't register Trans Network Uganda with an S. So it had to be replaced with a Z. That's why with Trans Network Uganda, it has a Z instead.
Makes sense.
Yes, for us to, of course, have formal registration to be able to operate as a company limited by guarantee. Yeah, and from that time, of course, Trans Network spearhead skyrocketed. We started getting the visibility in most of the spaces. Of course, most of the strong activist squad stays with the Kashas. We're running the lesbian foundation, that's Farouk, and we had also sexual minorities, Uganda, the Franco Gishas, who I kind of, begged and discussed with, but also asked to steer me and guide me through this direction. And
Right.
from that, Tranz Network Uganda became what it is.
A pause there. You, like I said earlier on, are a very important contributor to the movement, not only in Uganda, but in Africa and globally. There are things that you have done that we will remember in history, as we are going to discuss them during this show. But like I said, you are my little brother. You're one of the people I was fighting for when I was in Uganda. And 2014, you come out as this fierce fighter. What inspired you? When I was growing up, we didn't know even what trans or gender identity means. Was there any background built by earlier activists for you? How was your life like before 2014, growing up as a young person who is trans identifying in Uganda, meaning for you and for people of your age?
Thank you so much, Victor, for that. I will tell you my motivation in 2014 was a mix of so many things. One of the things that I admired your leadership. I admired your time, and I admired your boldness for standing out and speaking out. And of course, Victor, I remember your Lova Papers. You're one of the people who were violated and came out openly, and your case was recorded. So we really looked up to you. But then that time when the bill passed, there was nobody willing to take on the mentor. You guys had faced a lot of pressure. You had already been systematically discriminated. You had been systematically abused. So you were grappling with a lot of things. And then the space was now open and empty for trans organizing. Of course, MSMs were there. We had gay organizing, lesbian organizing.
Very vibrant for our lives.
Yeah, but it wasn't so. It wasn't that sexy and lovely. It was such a rough space to coexist. And I'll tell you, Victor, even working within the broader LGBT movement, to just found a specific trans network that says we are going now to bring trans people to air out their voices as trans for trans was also a very political space, even to just maneuver or even kind of go through. But it was just passion, the love for the movement, but also the huge gap that I saw. And like I said, my time in Nairobi gave me the confidence, gave me the kind of zeal to say, you know what, I think it's about me going into the country to stand for my people. Now that there's nobody speaking, people are tense, people are scared, we are not all going to run away. And there were so many more young and nascent activists, more, from school. Some of them were coming from the background of school just because they'd known the Victors have founded space for us, the Kashas have created for us this environment, the Franks have created this environment. We couldn't go back. Trust me, Victor, when you wear a shield of accepting who you are, it's very difficult to step back. And that's where my tipping point was. I was like, I'm not going back now. I'd already started affirming myself. I'd already started appreciating myself. At that stage, I'd started saying, this is now my foundation and this is where I belong. Yes. And then the bill, and then the disorganization. I was like, now what do we do? That's when I had to wear the shield of stepping in to steer the trans movement. And yeah, of course, driven by passion, driven by the fact that the community needed to continue the activism, the call for help, the call for support. The cry out there for our recognition, our respect, our visibility was very, very paramount. And I stood bold before the community, bold before the broader government and the world at large. I stood bold before the broader LGBTI community and told them, I think if trans people do not stand up and speak for themselves, there's never going to be space for trans. And basically, trans was a taboo. We are the ones who are attacked, we're the ones who are affected by the laws, we're the ones who are beaten by the bills. And the amount of violation is quite huge.
That brings
So I
me
was
to,
like, yeah.
and I'm sorry for cutting you short, but that brings me to another important question that I wanted to ask you during this conversation, Apako, because that was 2014. You have lived through two anti-gay bills. You have fought two horrible anti-gay bills. But I see that from Trans Network Uganda, while you're leading us in that direction, now you become the first trans person on the country coordinating mechanism of the Global Fund. That's a huge thing. We would like to hear more about that experience. But before that, for one of these bills, I saw an interview where you said that trans people are like migrants in Uganda. I think it was the 2024, maybe 2023, 2024. The trans people are like migrants in Uganda. Like migrants in Uganda. What did you mean by that? Now that you're talking about the political space being really tough to navigate, were you not safe within the LGBT community? Was it just the pressure from outside? As we have had some activists from other countries here saying that the transphobia was actually also hugely within the LGBTIQ movement. When you were like migrants in Uganda, when you talk about that, does it mean that you are facing the same as the other queer people in Uganda, or is it just the trans people? Viewers, there might be some technical problems going on, especially with our guest, Apako Williams. But Apako, as we wait for Apako to return, I think that so far you see who Apako is. You see what wealth the trans movement, trans and intersex movement has in Africa. You see how growth has happened in Africa. And even if it has been really, really hostile, we have had a lot of successes. Like I said earlier on, Apako was such a young little boy when we left. Today, he's one of our leaders. We had lost you, Apako.
Yeah, somehow internet issues had gone off briefly, but then thank you so much for actually. I'm glad that you follow the work that I do, because when you recall and remind me when I say that trans people are like migrants, I really remember vividly saying that. And for me, it was a point of even pain and anger, but also the fact that we don't have a permanent space.
Yes.
In our own country. We don't have a place we call home in our own country. And globally, the whole of Africa, trans people find comfort in migrating from one place to another. Trans people find comfort in staying in a place where they are not known. Trans people find comfort in finding new avenues where they can exist or coexist peacefully without necessarily having to look at my body or my identity. So beyond that, why I mentioned that statement, because I felt the plea and the pain of it, that trans people, right from 2014, Victor, there's never been a stable place, for example, for Uganda, where you see trans people are now stable. Up to date, any opportunity or any option for trans people to leave the country, I think they're very much ready. As long as they're out there and they find more stable ground, more peaceful ground, trust me, there's so many other trans people willing to leave this country, and more trans and intersex people willing to migrate and stay away from Uganda. It's rough. Much as we say that the environment has improved, we can see right now with the Trump regime, the man is calling us out naked, openly, without shame, trying to derail our efforts, trying to, kind of mimic our existence. And for me, that just draws us back to the fact that the battle for trans people is still very, very huge. And with even this TIHA documentation, it's something we need to really continue doing, but also we need to even have avenues and places where we meet and try to, reconcile and recall some of these journeys, but also remind ourselves that we're not going to give up. And it's not about today, and it's not about now. So that's why I said we are migrants. We will never have a peace avenue space
Right. I think for me, that's a very personal thing. When I heard you say that, it became very personal. And I'm like, yeah, he has named my life. He has just named the nature of my life. Migrant. Not just that I migrated to the US, but I was migrating all over the place like a nomad in Uganda. And I think that that has been your life and the life of so many trans people in Uganda, in Africa, actually, globally. And thank you for representing our voice on that. Apart some things have happened, very good but challenging things. We go back to the country mechanism in Uganda for the Global Fund. Could you please take us through that? Because this is a huge thing. First, trans person, a queer person in that space, in such a very hostile environment. What is this mechanism that you're working with? How are you received as a trans person, but also as a representative of these marginalized communities?
Yeah, so
just tell us before about the mechanism, just in about half a minute.
Yeah, so before the UCCM is the Uganda Country Coordinating Mechanism of the Global Fund, and its role is for oversight and foresight into the Global Fund projects in terms of implementation, but also in terms of grant allocation. And as a community leader, of course, I've been in the HIV field for long, working closely with the Ministry of Health as we were, of course, among the peers who were elected as technical working group members. But then with that time, we saw that representation on the CCM had either people who were leaning to the LGBT community, so-called implementing partners, or of course, partners who were working with us. But then also they were more receptive to either a sex worker or an MSM person. So when it came a time when there was, of course, somebody who served as a sex worker and their term ended, and there was also Moses Chimbugwe who represented us as LGBT community.
Right.
So I will also say one of the things that motivated me or pushed me to that position was the likes of Moses Chimbugwe, who knew my work, who was always with me in those spaces, pushing very boldly and reminding them that trans rights are here and trans people are here, but also reminding them that you don't talk for us. We are here to talk for us. Don't wear our shoe. However much you want to try to wear it, don't overwear it. Give it space for us to come and represent that gap. So they were looking around for who can represent us on the Global Fund. So the fact that I'm a vice chairperson of the Uganda Queer Population Consortium, I also sit in spaces with Moses Chimbugwe. He said, no, I think we have to vote the right people to represent us in these spaces. Right. That's when the campaigns were going on. I put in my request to be elected, and campaigns happened, and I was elected to represent the.
You wouldn't have. I'm sure you're not just elected because you're trans. It is because of how far you have grown and your passion and knowledge in the field.
Exactly. Yes. So, it's how much passion, how much I've grown, and how much time I put in. But also, if I find me in this space as Victor, I'm not there to smile. I'm there to tell them I'm human like you. We are seated on this table to discuss as human. Let's wear a shield of a human and understand that my health is permanent. My well-being is really paramount. And then the trans issue, we'll discuss it. But on this table, we are human. We are discussing a human being. And what we want is to understand that we might have divergent issues, but doesn't really limit us from existing as human beings. So,
but man, that journey hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. And for us as trans people and intersex people across the continent, I'm sure those who are listening, we're proud of you. We are proud of you because you have taken us to that table, because we come with you on your shoulders wherever you go to speak and represent us and fight for us. So we are very proud of you, and we will celebrate you here at TIHA always, and we will ensure that your name and impact on our movement will not be forgotten, because TIHA is here to keep those stories, those experiences, and everything that we have gone through. So we thank you so much. I am sorry, I'm going to take you somewhere that is a little bit dark. And if you're comfortable, talk about it. If you are not, let it go. but I know you're one of those people who have been arrested, harassed, abused in those spaces in Uganda because of your identity, because of your work. What is the experience like? How has it been for trans people, basing on yours, your own story of transgender people imprisoned or arrested?
Thank you so much. If I may just relate to that, and this doesn't only relate to me, it relates to the entire trans people and gender diverse persons in the country, or even intersex when I mean gender diverse. So
Yes.
my journey, let me started from, I was a sports person and I love
Yes.
sports. I played basketball. I appeared in the papers of Uganda.
Yes.
But when I owned my sexuality, when I became who I was, that was the beginning of my biggest problems at the basketball fraternity. I was sidelined. My slot was always given out. Even when I was supposed to represent the country, I was always, of course, sidelined, and my position was given to somebody else. So for me, I just realized that, okay, my starting to look different, my starting to dress different, my starting to really represent the person that I am has caused me problems. And of course, before I lived as a tomboy, they didn't care so much. When I owned up to be the man I want to be, problems came in. So problems started from, how does a boy participate in female sports? And I tell them I've not even transitioned, but they're like, no, you're representing a wrong body on a wrong the wrong team. So then I became very uncomfortable, Victor, to play basketball because
I'm sorry for interrupting you. Which year was that? Because it will be beautiful for us 20 years from now to note that in this particular year, you had issues in sports.
That was between 2009, 2010, 11, 12.
Okay.
Between all that time, I had a lot of problems. And now because I related with somebody called Jay Mulucha, who also plays sports.
Yes,
I was a basketballer. And then Mulucha was one of the open gay people in the sports fraternity. We were very close at that time. And then they would call us that, oh, you're Muganda, what Jay in Luganda, that's Jay's sister, that's Jay's brother. In that manner to mean that those people are gay. So from that time, the hate became too much. The discrimination was vivid, that even when you go and sit in a space, you feel the discomfort that people are trying to, show you. The relationship you had with people kind of changed, that people don't want to relate with you so much. So that time we went to compete. We went out after basketball. We had won the matches. We went out as usual, as people to celebrate. Yeah, and that night we had somebody, a white lady who had come to visit. One of the guys who was also playing, I think, rugby, had a crush on that same woman. And because we hung in with that woman, from nowhere, when people, of course, I think they were playing rugby, I think the sport had hit up and all that. From nowhere, we had them call us overseers, those homosexuals. We are tired of them.
Studio, are we losing Apako? Are we losing Williams? Williams was at a very, very, very important point narrating how trans people have been treated in sports in Uganda, which is a very important bit of history that we should document. Will help us to see how far we have come in that area. Will help us to see to understand what trans people go through in sports. And I pray that William is able to come back to the studio. I understand internet can be really distressing on our continent, but with patience, we will have Williams back. And for those who just joined us, Williams is the executive director of Trans Network, Uganda, a man who has done tremendous work defending the human rights of marginalized communities. He is a big defender of trans and intersex human rights in Uganda. He is the face of passion. When I look at him, when I see the kind of work that he has done, he's the face of passion resilience, and courage. Like I said, he was one of the young people that I was fighting to protect and defend when I was doing work back home in Uganda, when we were founding the movement. Today, Williams Apako is one of the leaders of the queer movement in Uganda. Welcome back, Williams.
I'm having challenges with the internet, but that's okay.
It is okay. We will get there. Thank you for.
So I pick up from where I'd stopped, maybe.
Yes, please.
So as I was telling you that time, so when we were attacked, we were abandoned aside. The funny thing is, when police came to rescue the fights, they did not care what caused the fight or what was going on. The only thing they minded about was the formation that was being pointed out there, that was homosexual, and we are tired of them. We are tired of seeing them. They are promoting homosexuality.
The police did not care what happened, but rather they were looking at you and labeling you however they wanted. So their problem was that homosexuals.
Sexuality, yes. And we carried into that their funny car. They threw us down there. It's called Kabangalia in Uganda. They threw us under the seats.
Yeah, those are the pickup vehicles. Police, very humanized.
We ended up in the police cells. Trust me, Victor, it was so dehumanizing.
Yeah.
It was extremely dehumanizing when we got to the police.
Yes.
For me, because I totally I look different. The question was, where do we take him? The male cell or the female cell? Male cell or female cell? So I had to be taken in a private room to be checked by a police surgeon who had to check me thoroughly to really prove where I belong. And that's how I was thrown in the female cell.
What does that mean? What do you mean by you were checked by a police surgeon? Like, what are they checking?
They had to ascertain whether I'm female or male.
Meaning they dehumanized you and undressed you.
Undressed me. They took me to undress me and checked me, and then had to throw me in the female side. It was very terrible because at that time we had now to wait for people to come and rescue us. And of course they denied us phone calls. They denied access to all our phone calls and something like that. It was until around from the last night. It was until like the other day around 3 p.m. that we got access to a phone, and that's when we called Frank Mugisha, and he immediately appeared at police. They had to, clarify the case, do all the verification. There was no case at all. The only people who needed, of course, the rescue and of course that immediate support and emergency rescue was us. They had beaten me. I was bleeding. I had a swollen face, and that video is still online.
I've seen it. This disgusting part of this is that you were the victims, and the victims are the ones who were thrown into jail.
Thrown into jail. And we suffered, it was very dehumanizing, like I'm telling you, it was very insulting. The police people, those police officers insulted us to the core, calling us all sorts of names, laughing, then they brought us out to the reception, and everybody would look at us in a very strange way and burst out laughing. They would look at us and burst out laughing. When the Frank Mugishas appeared, they all disappeared. They all left the front desk, and there was only one person who said, "We don't know these people. These people were brought here in the night. We also don't know the case." And we just released just like that. When I followed up the case at police, I went and reported the person who attacked me because I saw their face. He was a prominent rugby player. It was hidden within that. They refused to acknowledge that. They refused to accept. The police denied. I even took the case to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. It was that serious. I was very, very angry because for me, I wanted justice, and I wanted that rugby player to pay, because I wanted to be the example for others for him to learn and know that it's just not human for you to treat people like that. But then the Uganda Human Rights Commission by then was also not very, 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 very conversant about LGBT issues. They weren't very confident to talk about it. So the case went like that. I lost hope and I gave up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I'm really sorry and really angry that these kind of things happened in the early 2000s. They happened in the late 2000s. And now we are having the same things happening in sports. And also the situation of trans people, trans and intersex people, when it comes to jail, prison, incarceration. It is sad, and it is something that we should continue to fight against for the dignity of transgender people in all spaces. But Apako's story is not unique to him. It represents so many of us out there, people even still in Uganda. It is sad that this still happens. But Apako, there's a lot that I have seen about you. From being in those prison cells, dehumanized by police officers, dehumanized by fellow prisoners. Again, you are the same guy who has participated in educating the police about sexual orientation and gender identity and the rights of these people. You have participated in this kind of programs. Apako, tell us more about that work that you have done around sensitizing the police and other security entities in Uganda.
Even when you just even try to interface with them directly beyond just a case, I had to really stand strong, because just another example, we were having, of course, dinner as LGBTI community members, and I was walking out with the Mukasa, Kim Mukasa, but he now identifies as Mukasa.
Another activist.
Even just walking within Serena, we're just stepping out of Serena with him, and we're arrested also for they allegedly accuse us for having a gay wedding going on, and me and him were the couple.
What?
and with that instance from that time, even Mukasa knows that story very well. It was again Frank Mugisha who saved us from.
Big up Frank Mugisha. Thank you so much for our people.
From that time, Victor, I told myself there's no going back, because if I don't really educate these people, then nobody will know. It was really humiliating for somebody treating you that way, but just because they did not know who you are, they did not relate with what you are, and in the country generally, they did not relate with anybody who identifies out of what they know is normal to them. So for me, it was just about that time that I said, no, if I get an opportunity to educate these people, not only police, not only law enforcement officers and the judiciary, I also educate the people I work with in my spaces. I work with the so-called straight people.
Have you held workshops where you are facing these police officers and educating them?
Yeah, quite many with the Human Rights Awareness and Promotion Forum, quite many that I've educated them on issues of gender identity and sexual orientation. They've told me many times to address, so that they look at my body, they see what is there. Most of them have said, no, you're actually a man, you're not born different. And I tell them, no, I was born with a vagina in my legs, but then it doesn't define me at this stage. They don't believe. They want to undress you, they want to check you, they go wild just by you opening up and telling them who you are, because of course, I needed to tell them what is between me. When they arrest somebody else like me, they know what they're going to deal with.
Thank you, Apako. But we're about to end this, but I still have questions for you. And this one goes back to Trans Network Uganda. And I'm wondering about the kind of work, like I have seen, but I want our viewers to know. And I also want for history to be put down, for these things to be remembered in the future. You have done a lot of work around access to care, to health for trans people, for transgender people. And I know that things are different from how they were during our time. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about how accessible trans healthcare is right now, how anything that is communicatable, shareable, that makes that doesn't expose our community, about access, say, to HRT, access to gender affirming care, services and.
Yeah, I was going to come to that actually. It all relates to education.
Yes.
One of the things that I've also done is educate the healthcare providers, and there was a pilot of training that took place on gender and sexual diversity, and I was one of the people who were trained by PEPFAR and the USAID as one of the community trainers, trainers. So I've trained healthcare providers across different regions of the country. But when it comes to access to healthcare, of course, in the countries there's general healthcare. Everybody can walk into a particular space and receive basic medical support. That's if you say you're going to a public facility, but not identified as a trans, not with the appearance as a trans person, you can access. But if you go there as a trans person, right now we have specialized clinics where it's been the HIV phase that, of course, increase access to the services for the LGBTI community, also the trans people. Because the claim was that there was a high burden of HIV, the LGBT community, and most specifically the trans people had a lot of HIV. And that's when the government and other, of course, country, global, even Africa, opened up opportunities for people to access services. But there's nothing like specialized services in the country that you can say as a trans people, I'm going to go in a particular space and receive this service. But if you choose to go private and use your own resources possible for you to actually get the specialized services. But what is happening right now is for the trans women, 80% of the trans women I know are buying medicines from the pharmacies. Because in the country here in Uganda, it's easy for you. As long as you have your prescriptions, you can walk to a pharmacy and buy medicine at your will at any time. So most of them, by peers, by friends, they're accessing hormonal replacement therapy, but because of peers and because of friends. And a good number of trans women right now actually have transitioned and are really looking nice and looking beautiful as their skin desires. But then there are many other recurring effects that come with, of course, being on hormonal replacement therapy. And these are some of the issues they've not tackled as them. Issues to do with drug interactions, much as we know that some of them are even on antiviral treatment or are living with HIV and on treatment, but they're also now taking hormonal replacement therapy medication. So those are some of the things that are really limiting right now because they do not know the drug interaction, they do not know the effect of the drugs to their body, but they just want to be who they want to be, and we cannot stop them. Yes, desperation. And what I've known is some trans men have gone to an extent of also doing their top surgeries because they can't stand the fact that they're going to bind all their life and live with all the pressures of having a binder on your chest and the heat and the dust in this country. And of course, there's so many challenges come with it. So many of them have gone to extent of, as much as they receive, they save to an extent that I want to now do my surgery, I want to live free and bold in this country, other than thinking of finding other venues for me to exist. But medical, with healthcare, it's something that is not more comprehensive in nature. You can receive it as you, if you can afford, if you have a good background and family, if you have a good education, it's easier. But it's also very tough on the vulnerable communities, for those who are not educated, for trans people and intersex people who come from families that are of humble background. There's of course that double kind of challenges that come with that. But majority of today, some of trans people are educated, they've gone to school, they are bold, they are taking hormones, they are on social media platforms in the same country with all these laws. And I'm quite also really challenged. I'm like, okay, the space we are fighting for looks tough, but there are people who are coming out to say, this is who I am, and I'm not going to share about it. And they are going public.
Bro, that's very big. I mean, it is still a problem, but it's a big advancement. We had to leave the country for all the kinds of care that we needed. And today, some trans people in Uganda can actually access some care which we need to make safe, but at least the doors are beginning to open. And I thank you so much for all the work that you keep doing to make this situation better for our people. It's almost time for me to close this conversation, because I could talk to you for a very long time. And studio is Mama Tranz. Mama Tranz there? They might want to come and talk to to one of their children. This is one of Mama Tranz. That's Mama Tranz.
Hi there. Yes, I'm very, very excited.
Mama Tranz is a teammate here at TIHA. We work together, but Mama Tranz has really contributed tremendously to our movement and the history, the transgender movement, trans and intersex movement in Africa. So sometimes I just love to call her around to come and see some of the people that have come up, some of the people that we had to run away from the places for, so that they take those spaces. I am proud to see them, and I'm sure you are proud to see people like Williams, Mama Tranz.
Hi there. Yeah, thank you. Yes, it is obviously very exciting for me to see Williams. I can remember so many years ago, was it in 2011, 12? I can't remember, when we ended up sitting next to each other in a meeting in Cape Town, right? And
yeah,
we met each other before that, obviously back in Kampala. Yeah. And then whoops, and then the organizers put us to sit next together. I can remember that. It was so nice. So you had a very bright blue shirt on. I will always remember that.
Sometimes people might wonder why I call you so much on these shows, Mama Tranz. For those who don't know Lizo, I can briefly say Lizo is from South Africa. Lizo actually was founded and was the executive director of the first ever transgender organization on the continent, Gender Dynamics.
So did you say the first registered? Because there was obviously
first also registered. No, we will have Gender Dynamics here to talk about all this. We need
but
your
it was
team
the first
to come.
Registered organization. There was other groups and people.
But it's important for those who don't know Lizo that Lizo is Mama Tranz from Africa, from South Africa, from Gender Dynamics. Go ahead.
And then, no, thank you. So it's so great to see Williams and all the work you're doing. I was very interested to hear the stories you also speak about sport, because so many times we end up focusing only on people's lives, the organization, the registration, the work they do, but everyone have a private life, have hobbies or sport or whatever other talents and things and interests. And it is important also in this very political moment of right now that you bring in the topics of sport, what people have to go through to just play the sport they want. And even not speaking about the US, but in many other countries, and how it roll out to other countries, like this whole hunting down of trans and intersex people competing in sport. Like, it is just beyond crazy. But anyway, so let's not open up again the whole discussion. Victor was trying to wrap up. So
greet my people, greet our people, and also let them know about.
That's exactly what. So I want to greet all the people, both the people in the audience listening, other activists that gets either just new information about people that they were knowing but not knowing all the information. And I really want to say thank you to everyone that also patiently stayed with us when we had some few technical challenges. It is part of what this is all about. And that's then right. I would like to also say thank you to one of our partners, being Gender Dynamics, because they support our work quite a lot. Even though we are not officially part of them as an organization, but they are supporting us a lot.
They are partners.
And in this very moment, I also want to say thank you to our funder, the Astrea Foundation, that keeps on making this happening. It really helps us a lot to have all types of support.
Yes.
So yes, I think with that, that's enough from my side. Otherwise, we continue this too long.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lizo. I have a great admiration for you. Right from GDX to only trans organizations I also knew. And I'm glad that we are still connecting. Yeah, I knew Lizzo, but I'd never met Lizzo. But I would just hear the name. I admired her, but I'd never met her in person until that time in South Africa, and maybe a few years ago in South Africa again. Yeah, hope to see you again, Lizzo.
She's still with us. It was our energy, and we continue to work with her. She continues to support a lot of us in these struggles. But Apako, you are the star here, and I thank you so much for coming. Thank you for sharing those difficult stories. I know sometimes they take us back to memory lane. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for representing us and all my siblings in Uganda. But most importantly, thank you for keeping on standing. And here at TIHA, we are ready not to lose this history every time it is being made. We lost a lot during our time when we didn't even know what our identity is called. We did a lot of, trans people have done a lot of tremendous work in Uganda, but it's not even registered as that. So anytime you have something that you want us to store for the future generations, just send it to us. You know how to reach us. And for everybody out there, we are ready to archive all the important work. Nothing is small. When we do it as a movement. Nothing is small. Send it to us, Apako. We will keep it safe in a central place where people can find it. So we thank you so much for your partnership with us. But in fact, this is not partnership. TIHA belongs to you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you so much.
Have a good, wonderful evening, and we will be in touch. Thanks to the team that you work with there. Some of them I know are this side of the camera. Thank you so much, Sean. Thanks, everybody. We will see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Victor, and thanks you for hosting me. See you soon.
Thank you for coming.